My name is Teresita Blanco, the Artsy Sister, and we'll continue with the Lover's Pentacle. This is chapter 9, Five of Pentacles. Kain entered Eugenia's hot pink Volkswagen, and she closed the pink curtains, and she turned on Pink Floyd vinyl record, and more specifically, it was the Wall album. The song being played was Hey You, and despite Eugenia's best effort, she wasn't able to get a rise out of Kain, and he simply lay there with a blank expression on his face, waiting for it to be over. Why don't you like me, Kain? Whined Eugenia. Being rejected is not the end of the world, said Kain, getting dressed. A beautiful, rich heiress like you should have no problem in finding herself her own Prince Charming. He left the car and he closed the door before Eugenia had a chance to protest, and she stopped with her crocodile tears, and when she felt herself alone, she grabbed onto the car seat and she started kicking and screaming. And while her feet subsided, she went to the driver's seat, and she looked through the rear view window mirror and she saw Kain staring at her door. She lowered the window and she said, "Do you need a ride, officer?" "Yes, my coworker had a family emergency, so he won't be able to pick me up," said Kain, coming over to sit beside Eugenia. The two rode in silence, and then when a red light Kain asked, "So when you do not get your way, you throw yourself into hysterics?" "Pretty much," said Eugenia, extremely ashamed of her childish behavior. "Does it work?" asked Kain. "It used to," said Eugenia, pouting. "Now my tantrums just annoy people, and my stomach wants me to spend some time in a sanitarium." "Sanitariums only work if you perceive your behavior as a problem," said Kain. "I take it you are a frequent visitor of such establishments," said Eugenia, giggling. "Nah, rehab centers are more my style," said Kain. "When my father's career began failing, the chill pills he used to take before each concert became his main coping mechanism, and the rest is history." "Are the rehab centers bad?" asked Eugenia. "It depends on the customer service. I can give you the name of a center that cured my father, but more than anything, you need strong support from your friends and family," said Kain. "My father's idea of support is to yell my ear off, and my real mother never raised her voice at me, and she was kind, soft, and gentle. Father used to be nice before she died, and now the only two emotions he can express is horny or angry," said Eugenia, sighing sadly. The conversation came to an end when Eugenia arrived to the police station, and Kain gave his uncle the full report of his activity. Ken smiled happily, seeing what his nephew had done something productive for his community. If he made it a lunchtime habit, this could help ease some of the negative reputation the police officer enjoyed thanks to a few rotten apples. Kain concluded his shift, and he smiled warmly, seeing his father already there waiting to pick him up, and the fact that his son was happy to see him meant the world to Jack, and the two drove to the seniors' activity center that Grandma Esther frequented, and the three went to the cemetery to put flowers on Raphael's grave. On the drive back, Esther said, "I spoke to a nice reporter today, and he wanted to do a story about your grandson." "My life isn't that interesting," said Kain. "It is boring, even." "That is for the readers to decide," said Jack, smiling warmly. The three arrived at Kain's home, and waiting outside like a penitent was Alexia. Their interview was merely an excuse for Alexia to get to know Kain. The two had met during Kain's junior year, and the old Kain was sociable and always willing to lend a hand to anyone who asked. And in his last year, Kain was often seen roaming the hallways, and he spent more time in Karina's classes than his own. And he went from being the valedictorian to a lackluster C student, and like his grandpa, his teachers mourned the fact that he was throwing away his future. Kain began dinner while he answered Alexia's questions, and his biggest accomplishment was that he owned a house, and he saved some stupid kid from drowning. And he talked about his hobbies, favorite food, and his workout routine. "Are you a Democrat or a Republican?" asked Alexia. "Is there a difference between the two?" asked Kain dryly. "Please, let's not get into a political debate before dinner," protested Esther while she was watching Wheel of Fortune with Jack. From time to time, the two would try to guess the puzzle. Alexia, changing the subject, said, "If you're good at drawing, why didn't you go into art school?" "These days, being a good draftsman isn't enough to be considered an artist. You have to be what the art critics and the art collectors consider original," said Kain, adding the final touches to his Greek salad. "All I can manage is a soulless mimicry of the world." "Is that what Mr. Peters told you?" asked Alexia, alluding to the art professor. Nah, he encouraged me to continue with my art education. So I did my research and I came to the conclusion that college is for suckers. And by the time you reach the last classes, they are worse than arm and a leg, and even the teachers don't speak a lick of English, so you're basically paying to learn absolutely nothing. And don't even get me started with tuition differentials that came before going on a long rant about everything that was wrong with the U.S. education system. Wow, you really did do your research, Kain, said Alexia, smiling sadly. So you didn't go to college because you thought you couldn't afford it, said Esther sadly. We could have dipped into the family savings to help pay for your education, Kain. That wasn't the only reason I chose not to bother with college, Grandma. Think Auntie Elizabeth, for example. After all of her studying, the only high-paying job she managed to get has nothing to do with her degree. And she got her job thanks to a friend, not because of her education. Without connections, your degree is worth the same as toilet paper, said Kain, concluding his big speech. The topic died when dinner was served, and Alexia was impressed by Kain's wit, and his own classmate was still as sharp as ever, and back when they were in high school, Kain's main contribution to the school paper were his cartoons, and he illustrated whatever stupid idea popped into Alexia's mind. And the first time Kain was ordered to write about a topic, his opinion piece gave the teachers and the students plenty to think about. Alexia still had cutouts of Kain's articles and his original political cartoon drawings in his office to inspire him to write with passion. Ah, such a waste of potential, commented Alexia while eating dessert. You could be doing so much with your life. Ah, you sound just like Karina, said Kain, narrowing his eyes. She too is interested in the type of person I could be, but we don't live in could world. We live in the real world, and in the real world, only the lucky few have their dreams come true. On this dour note, dinner came to an end, and Kain left the table and he went to take his rage out on the unfortunate place. And it didn't matter how much he scrubbed the frying pan, the black stain just wouldn't be washed clean. Jack collected the leftovers and he handed them to Alexia before opening the door for him. And Alexia, taking the hint, left, and the encounter with his old classmate had left him rather depressed. I'm sorry, Kain, said Esther, apologetic. Please don't be sad. It's fine, Grandma. You didn't do anything wrong, said Kain, smiling sadly. I'm just sick of people looking down on me because I didn't get a college degree. Do you want to go play with Karina? Asked Esther. Karina's busy with her new boyfriend, said Kain when he finished washing the dishes. For the time being, she would only hang out when we go on double dates. As if feeling alluded to, Kain got a text message from Karina. I convinced Bruno to watch Betty La Fea with me. I want you to see it as well, and text me whenever there's a scene you like. She can't be serious, said Esther, raising an eyebrow after reading the message. You should watch it with me, Grandma. You might grow to like it, said Kain. I will watch a telenovela with you, offered Jack. The three settled down to watch Betty La Fea, and while seeing the show, Kain reclined on the couch and he rested his head on a pillow. The pillow happened to be beside his father, Jack. Jack remembered that when Kain was small, he would always watch his show while lying down. Almost by reflex, Jack proceeded to pet Kain's short hair lovingly. At first, Kain grimaced, and the cold, delicate musician had succeeded in calming his frayed nerves. And Esther couldn't help but silently cry a little, and she was just happy to see father and son finally getting along together. And the moment lingered past the telenovela, and with the two in perfect harmony with one another. Dad, when you fell from grace, why didn't you come back home? Said Kain. You didn't have Mom, you didn't have fame, you didn't have money, but you had me, Father. I would have received you with open arms. I was ashamed. I sacrificed so much, and when the band split, I just couldn't bring myself to face you, and I kept thinking, once we're all millionaires, all the pain and humiliation is going to be worth it. Being a musician is not as glamorous as they make it seem in the movies. The record labels eat most of your profits, and going on tour is the only way to make money, said Jack before explaining all of the factors that contributed to his failure. Esther, changing the subject, asked Jack to play something on the guitar. Jack played an old Sesame Street tune that Kain used to find amusing, and the little jingle succeeded in dispelling the darkness that was weighing down on their family. The following morning, Kain awoke extremely early and in a good mood. He did his morning workout and he baked cookies. He noticed that he was missing sugar for the frosting, and he took his father's key and he drove to the nearby Publix, and it was only when he returned home that he realized that he had managed to drive. And in a good mood, he finished his baking project in time to make breakfast. Jack drove his son to work, and Kain, in a good mood, attempted to drive his patrol car, and the anxiety attack manifested far worse than before, and he called up Unla immediately. "It's alright, Kain. Breathe with me," said Unla. Karina, who was beside her mother, opened her mouth to inquire, but Unla placed her index fingers to her mouth. Karina took the hint that her mother was busy working, and once Kain felt better, Unla finally answered Karina's inquisitive gaze. "Your friend Kain is my new patient," said Unla flatly. "And what's wrong with him?" asked Karina, pestering her mother for answer. "It is called doctor-patient confidentiality, and your specialty is small children. Which reminds me, I have already lined up for you a few interviews in clinics that would offer you a high-paying residency," said Unla, changing the subject. "Fine, if you're not going to tell me, I'm going to find out myself," said Karina, calling Kain. When Kain picked up the cell phone, Karina heard that her friend was sobbing. She instead of going over to see her friend, she went to her first interview. This didn't surprise Unla in the slightest. She figured that her daughter was neglecting her friendship to avoid thinking of her dead father. Unla sighed wearily. As soon as her daughter left, she went to the attic to look at all of the things that belonged to her dead husband. Normally, she limited herself to looking through the old family album, and this time Unla looked through everything, and she found a box filled with medical records of her husband's patients, and he was always taking his work home, and when she moved the box, her husband's name card fell to the floor. Unla said his name out loud, Juan Carlos. She repeated his name again, only louder, and it felt nice to say his name, for he made her feel that he was still alive. Unla smiled sadly, and then she brought downstairs the box with the medical records. She wanted to read them over the top, only to quench her medical curiosity, and she had never actually bothered to read those files. And Juan Carlos was a general surgeon who specialized in operating small children, and she discovered that Kain was a former patient of her husband. "Let's see, Kain, what were you brought in for?" said Unla, raising an eyebrow. "Puncture lung caused by a broken rib." Unla saw the file photo of a 4-year-old Kain, and he got gotten a major beating that had landed him in the hospital. Unla remembered a case that had gotten her husband Juan Carlos extremely upset, so much so that he had called child service. Unla was going to sit on that information for the time being. Back in the police station, Kain was filing documents and sorting through evidence, and on top of the desk he had 2 plastic boxes filled with his homemade cookie sandwiches. From time to time, Uncle Glenn would check up on Kain, and what Glenn really wanted was a cookie, but he was too ashamed to ask for one. After hearing his belly rumble a few times, Kain guessed what his uncle truly wanted, and he opened one of the boxes of cookies and he handed one to his uncle. "I need a ride, Uncle," said Kain meekly. "I was able to drive just fine this morning, but I don't know why I had that panic attack again." "I spoke to Unla about it," said Glenn. "She theorizes that the patrol car gives you bad flashbacks, or maybe driving one while sporting a uniform reminds you of your accident, and she is currently devising an exposure therapy for you, and according to the research she forwarded, it has been successful in reducing phobias." "How much is it going to cost us?" asked Kain dryly. "Your work insurance should cover it," said Glenn, "and the therapy sessions will only eat away 1 hour of day, and it mainly involves driving, and she visits a lot of patients in their homes, so you can drive while she catches up with her paperwork." Glenn saw Kain clench his fist, and with a defeated tone, he agreed to do the exposure therapy. Lunch break came, so Kain went outside to wait for his drink, and instead of forcing Kain to drive his patrol car, Unla insisted that he be a passenger instead, and this would remove some of the immediate tension from the experience. At first, Unla was all business, but then she started to fiddle around with the controls of the patrol car, and when she succeeded in turning on the siren, she had a hearty laugh when all of the cars moved aside to let her pass. So I said, like she's driving the patrol car and having fun. "If you wanted to play with a patrol car, you didn't need to come up with such a convoluted scheme," protested Kain. "You need to enjoy your happy moments whenever you find it," said Unla. "Now where do you want to go?" "The Miami Herald. I printed out the direction from MapQuest," said Kain, looking at his notes. Along the way, Unla asked, "And did they ever catch a big speeding driver that crashed into you?" "Not really. Everyone saw everything and nothing at the same time," said Kain. "Which was just as well. I feel that I scarce resources I better spend elsewhere." They two arrived at the Miami Herald, and Unla decided to tag along, and she figured she might as well give her business card to every distressed person she ran into. The two caused quite a commotion when they entered the establishment. It was uncommon to see a police officer and a doctor walking together. Kain asked the receptionist to speak to Alexia. Alexia was in the middle of adding the final touches to his article. Based on the malevolent smile, he was writing something awful, and he saw a shadow looming over his shoulder, and he jumped out of his skin when he saw Kain in full uniform. Kain attempted to speak, but he wasn't able to, and Nuala wrote in her word notepad the words, selected mutism. And since things were becoming awkward, Kain delivered his Tupperware filled with cookies, and he had a taped note to the bottom of the box that explains the nature of his gift. And with the delivery concluded, Kain ran from the embarrassing social situation. And as soon as Kain left, all of Alecia's co-workers started crowding about him. They all wanted to see what was in the box. Alecia got in his press and jealously went to lock himself in the bathroom in order to get some privacy. And this privacy was short-lived. His boss, who had the master key, opened the bathroom and he demanded that Alecia not keep any secrets from his co-workers. The Florida reporters, by their very nature, were a gossipy bunch, and most didn't believe in privacy. Alecia opened the box and he showed his boss the cookie sandwiches. Alecia remembered that Kain used to offer those boxes as a tribute whenever he missed a day of school. Alecia's co-workers jumped at his look, only leaving behind a single cookie. Alecia tried a long cookie sandwich, and based on the warmth and texture, he realized that the cookie had been baked just a few hours ago. He pondered on the meaning of the offering. The cookies couldn't just be a simple apology for being rude. And deep down, Alecia wanted the cookies to mean something more. Alecia returned to his workstation with the empty box that still had the letter hidden underneath. And he read through his article about Kain's accident, and he felt that it was a little mean-spirited. And he edited the article to focus on Kain's positive quality. And when he lifted the box, he felt the letter. And when the coast was clear, he read what he hoped was a love letter. To my former classmate Alecia, I wanted to apologize for my rude behavior last night. Ever since my accident, I haven't been feeling well, and every time I try to cross a red light, I am overcome by a shaking fit followed by a shortness of breath. And the stress of these panic attacks have made me irritable, and even so, it was wrong for me to yell at you, and I hope that you can forgive me. Signed, Kain. P.S. This weekend we are celebrating my grandmother's birthday, and I would like for you to come, but you don't have to. We can talk about old times, and yes, there is going to be cake. I saw the smile manifested in Alecia's lips, and he was reading too much into Kain's heartfelt apology. Alecia gave another polish to his article, and he photocopied the letter he had received, and he left visible the lines where Kain described how the accident had negatively impacted his life. And after visiting Alecia, Unla took Kain to Eugenia's house. And when they arrived, the person who answered the door was Eugenia's half-sister, Dorothy. The girl saw the police officer and the doctor, so she naturally assumed that they had finally come to take Eugenia to rehab. Kain sat there and he waited for Eugenia to manifest, and he guessed that Eugenia was tracking him somehow, and he got confirmation of his suspicion when Eugenia walked into her home. I came here to apologize for my rudeness yesterday, and I haven't been feeling well since my accident, and I have even started seeing a shrink, said Kain as his ears turned red. So I baked you a box of cookies with a hope that things will go back to normal. Give me those cookies, said Dorothy, jumping at the present, and she ate one, and then she said, That's strange. What's strange? Asked Eugenia, alarmed. I'm not seeing anything. That is why it's strange, said Dorothy, giggling. Because Dorothy thought that they were that they were hallucinogenic cookies, considering all of the awful people that Eugenia typically dates. The only secret ingredient that you will find in these cookies is sugarcane, explained Kain. Kain looked at the imaginary watch, and then he left the mansion, and like Alexia, Eugenia began to overanalyze this simple apology, and she imagined that the cookies meant that Kain was in love with her. The sisters spent the rest of the afternoon gossiping about Kain, and when Michael returned home from work, he frowned when he heard the topic of the conversation. And his first impression of Kain was terrible, and now he had both daughters gushing over the handsome police officer. And at times like this, Michael felt like he was being punished through his daughter for his womanizing ways. And he called up his private detective to find dirt on Kain, and the detective already had the information. Eugenia was paying him to start Kain and to investigate his past. Have you found any dirt on him? Asked Michael. A little, said the detective Dave Parker. Parker was a former Agent Romeo who got too old and fat to continue the line of work, and now that he was retired, he amused himself by spying for the rich American socialites. His father is a recovering addict. I already know that everyone knows that, scoffed Michael. He illegally downloads movies and music, added Parker. So do I, and I'm in the Fortune 500, hissed Michael. Fortune 600 last I checked, said Parker dryly. At the age of 58, Parker was short, bald, and chubby, and his most distinguishing feature was his white mustache that contrasted with his watery, raven eyes. And he would often cosplay as a treasure hunter with a metal detector in order to blend in with the other retirees and vacationing tourists. And his detector, instead of listening for rare minerals, recorded all of the conversation near his proximity. So yeah, if you see in Miami, somebody with like a metal detector, the metal detector is probably a giant listening device. So be careful what you say near them. Just messing around. Although I always imagine that they're spying on me. If you're done interrupting, let me tell you the rest, said Parker before ranting about everything he discovered about Kain's past. There are still some mysteries left to unravel. The one that intrigues me the most is the circumstances of his mother's death. And how did a drunkard die of a fentanyl overdose? Fentanyl has only become popular in recent years. I'm not paying you to solve a code file, said Michael. Just answer me this one question. Is Kain a drunkard or an addict like his parents? Based on his published receipt that I found while dumpster driving, he isn't a drunkard. He follows a strict daily routine, and this routine doesn't include buying drugs or alcohol, said Parker. And if I had to find a fault in him, it's the fact that he doesn't do anything as a cop, though I suppose that can be helped. His uncle overprotects him and doesn't give him any real work. Does he hit women? Asked Michael. According to Karina, no, and I also spoken to some of his past girlfriends, and I unanimously praise his manners, his tidiness, his beauty, and his cooking skill. And he rarely barks, but he never bites, and as long as you don't pressure him, he's quite amicable, said Parker, and they all unanimously complain about his lack of passion, his miserly ways, and his terrible fashion sense. Why is Eugenia chasing after Kain? Asked Michael. He's the first man that has ever rejected your daughter. The more he flees from her, the more she chases, said Parker. And the two were even in bed together, and she felt to get a rise out of him. And just how do you know something so intimate? Asked Michael, bitterly enraged. Wouldn't you like to know? Said Parker before departing. Parker had left a hidden camera inside Eugenia's van, and it would amuse him to see the maid engaged in casual encounters. Alright, that's the end of that chapter. Bye-bye.